Hi guys, Brand here, and welcome to a much more positive video today. Yesterday, obviously, we had the little bit of the doozy. We had a not so positive update about the Trickster epilepsy bug situation, but today I wanted to do the video I originally wanted to do, which was talking about some of my favorite changes that were coming through with the Reddit Ask Me Anything. We got a lot of big updates on some things coming in the next year or so that are really exciting, so I want to talk about that first and foremost. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Already first here on our screen, we see that we are actually going to be getting P100 rewards now. If you guys remember, in the past, Behavior had actually said that they were not interested at all at doing P100 rewards because of FOMO, and if you do not know what FOMO is, shorthandedly, it is fear of missing out. They didn't want to feel like players were locked out of cosmetics or having access to them because they did not have enough time to invest in Dead by Daylight to P100 their character. Obviously, this comes with some unfortunate contradictions because Behavior has a lot of FOMO items that are event themed that come in and out of the store. So thankfully, either way, they are walking back this decision, and now they are looking into actually adding P100 rewards. What they are, we don't have any information on. Hopefully it's not something as small as just a charm, but it is nice that we're going to be rewarded for all the time and investment that we spend in the game now, and they did walk back a moderately unfun decision in terms of game progression. More good news is that Myers and Freddy are still being planned to being reworked here down the line. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of videos talking about top 5 killers that need help, and these characters have been appearing quite frequently on those lists that we have been doing. They are still the bottom 3 killers in the game down there with Trapper, so they have been needing updates for quite some time and are probably the most outdated characters in Dead by Daylight. They did say in the last Reddit Ask Me Anything that these characters were planned for updates, but this one confirms that they are still actively working on that, which is nice to hear. Keeping in theme with updates to characters that need the help, but not necessarily in a strength sort of way, the devs have admitted that they are still not happy with the current state of Skull Merchant, which still stands as probably, even historically, probably the most controversial killer to be in Dead by Daylight. It seems since this character has dropped, she has either received just unconditional love or unconditional hate, and it's really hard to make sense of the situation. The main issue with this character, obviously, being that she has a very low skill for, which means she gets a lot of value for doing relatively nothing, which is an okay archetype when a character is weaker, but she's still fairly solid despite the fact that she has so little input into the success that she has inside of her matches. What is certain is that the devs have said that they are not happy and that she is going to be receiving another big change coming up soon, so hopefully she will finally be in a position where she is actually loved universally by the community instead of being another point of contention, because we have way too many of those. Another big change that is coming that's really positive is a lot of problematic maps are receiving changes. This includes Forgotten Ruins, with obviously the portal stuff not being too great, Badham with a focus on main buildings, what they specifically said they're going to be working on Badham the whole realm with, Garden of Joy obviously being the more, besides Badham, probably the most infamous anti-killer map in the game, and it received some changes recently, but they weren't very substantial, so it was barely noticed. Midwich, which is kind of the other end, where it's kind of like the infamous non-survivor map, that is kind of a very, very strong killer side map, and in general is it's not a very breathable map. It's a map that I love a lot, but in terms of gameplay, it's very rigid. And finally, what we have in front of us is Swamp is still being planned for a Realm Beyond update, so a full rework. This was leaked that it was being worked on a long time ago, but it never actually came to fruition, but this confirms that they are actively still working on it, which is pretty cool. In addition to this map thing, I found something very, very interesting in this, and the fact that Dead by Daylight Behavior is actually trying to add variations to each of the maps in terms of day and night cycles, which is, I'm sure you've realized at one point or another while you've played Freddy or watch somebody play Freddy, that the dream world makes the maps look very, very dynamic, different, and interesting, and sometimes people will just outright play Freddy just to see the maps in a different light, especially the maps kind of like Area Crows that have very, very bright and obnoxious lighting. Suddenly it makes the maps way, way more bearable. But now Behavior is working on doing something like this themselves by adding day and night variations or something to that extent to maps. Hopefully this actually does end up coming to the game, is not just something we refer back to on an Ask Me Anything a year from now, because this sounds really, really cool and sounds like it's going to add a lot of fun and variety to maps. So hopefully this does actually end up coming through. Now we're going to be taking a turn over to the survivor side of things, so most of this has been either general or killer sided conversations. Currently, generators are going to be worked on to be made more interesting. It's been a big critique of Dead by Daylight, essentially its entire existence, that Behavior's design of the gens has been very rudimentary and almost like mobile game-esque, where all you do is you just hold a button, and now you don't have to hold the button anymore. There's a click toggle, so you can just click button and hit spacebar. And especially with how generators are often progressed even further by skill check perks that don't require a lot of input on their own right, having gens be a little bit more dynamic and interesting would not only make them more fun for survivors, but also kind of mitigate the very simple gameplay that feels bad on the killer side at the same time. So I'm actually very surprised to hear this, because this is something that's been mentioned for Dead by Daylight for quite some time, is that the gens were very simple and there needs to be something dynamic happening with them, like having to go fetch parts or something like that to make them go burr. But they've always seemed very, very resistant to that idea, and it sounds like something that ripped straight out of Friday the 13th, and maybe that's why they were hesitant. But it seems like they're actually, you know, turning a new leaf with this and actually going to go through trying to test some things. If you see down here at the bottom too, is they're probably going to be doing some sort of test drive in an event of something similar, if not outright the mechanic we're going to be working with. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that'll be fun to test. And lastly, this is the thing I'm probably like the most excited for in terms of the Survivor side of gameplay, is that they are actually been working on trying to get new items in the game for Survivor recently, and we might see them in the upcoming year, because Survivors have been kind of stuck with the same items forever. You'd say it's toolbox, map, medkit, beamer, and now there's extra stuff in there as well, like the flashbangs and stuff, but you have to bring an active perk to get those to go off. There's holiday versions of these, like the firecrackers, but those are obviously seasonal and go away. So Survivor gameplay is already fairly limited by the fact that they're essentially all one character with a bunch of skins, so there's not really a whole lot of variety in their gameplay. So the fact that the item pool is also very limited at the same time does make Survivor the less fun role, especially in my opinion, in my experience. So having another item to potentially play with to dynamically affect the game could be really, really fun and interesting. We just got to make sure that it's not too strong, because obviously we've had a lot of history in the game of having items and perks dictate the flow of the game a little too much. So hopefully it's more of a focus on fun and freshening up the game, and not something that becomes another meta war like everything this game basically boils down to. Yeah, those are the things that I am excited for when it comes to the Reddit Ask Me Anything. It looks like there's going to be a lot of very, very interesting and dynamic changes coming to the game within the next year. The ones I'm probably the most excited for are the P100 Rewards, because obviously I have a couple of those, so I'm wondering what kind of thing I'm going to get to flaunt on the Xenomorph or Jeff. I also like the idea of the new Survivor item. Depending on what that is, I might make it like way, way, way more appealing to play Survivor, because currently I play Survivor once a week but Killer 4 times a week, which is kind of a lopsided split, and I definitely wish it was more 50-50, but there's just not enough about Survivor to really grip me and make me want to go in. But maybe if there's a fun new item, I can play Survivor even more. So yeah, those are the two things I'm most excited for. What are you guys most excited for that you've heard from the Reddit Ask Me Anything? It doesn't have anything that I did. These are just my favorites, but there's a lot more in here. If there's something that I left out that you're really excited for, let me know down in the comments below. And that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. But if I do not see you in tomorrow's video, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.